Hello, everyone. Tonight we are drifting into a time before bones knew what a skeleton was for, before even the moon was entirely sure what to reflect. You are somewhere swampy, somewhere warm, where the sky feels heavier, and the trees, if you can even call them that, haven't yet decided what shape they want to be. Giant fungi jut like periscopes, and the air is syrup thick, with a humidity that no human lungs could forgive. You're breathing it in, though. You are something. Not quite lizard, not quite fish, and definitely not impressed by the buzzing trilobites that cling to your tail. You're awake now, aren't you? But you probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And if you're listening in from a cave in Turkey or a bus stop in Brazil, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing who else is wandering the ancient world with me. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You shuffle along the peat-colored water with stubby limbs that can't decide if they belong to the sea or the shore. Everything around you smells like wet stone and dying moss. You blink, not because you have to, your eyes are covered with a transparent lid that's just showing off at this point, but because you're curious. Something just bubbled in the mud. Could be food. Could be something trying to make you food. Life back then was very symmetrical like that. This is the Devonian. Some people call it the age of fishes. You call it breakfast. Your prey moves slow, almost politely. Placoderms, they're called now. Heavily armored jawed fish with plates over their heads like helmets in a very awkward joust. You like them, yet it's because they crunch. You dislike them because they're fast in short bursts and seem to know that you are not. Still, you figured out a little trick: pretend to be a mossy log and let the current deliver lunch. Every time the bog goes still, you drift into a trance. You don't dream, not yet. Dreams require more brain than you've agreed to evolve. But sensations bloom in your memory, like bruises, the feel of mud between your scales, the taste of rotting algae, the distant vibration of an approaching earthquake. You don't know what tectonics are, but your belly does. The land groans underneath you, a slow-motion shrug of continents deciding they need more elbow room. Historians still debate whether early proto-crocodilian ancestors first appeared in marine environments or shallow freshwater zones, but you're here in the brackish middle, too salty for amphibians, too green for anything glamorous. You're a compromise animal in an uncompromising world, but hey, compromises live. You hiss without sound as something stirs a blind wormfish with feelers curling around the roots of a half-formed tree. You strike not fast but not slow either. There's a philosophy to your feeding style: move only when the odds are rude in your favor. It's hard to imagine now, but plants are a brand new idea. Giant club mosses, early ferns, and those weird leafless things that seem to be trying their best. They're still figuring out how to make bark. Honestly, everyone's doing their best, except insects. They're overachievers. Some are already the size of your snout, crawling with spindly arrogance over every moist surface. You spot one perched on a root, a mayfly with wings like old parchment. You try to snap at it but miss by half a foot. It takes off, clearly smug about the whole thing. You squint after it, then blink again. Your eyes are evolving slowly. Some of your relatives will eventually develop stereoscopic vision. You'll get there too after a few 100 million years of practice. And let's talk about those limbs of yours. Not legs, not fins. Something in between. They're thick, stubby, and bend in all the wrong places. But they work mostly. You're not a fast swimmer, not a fast crawler, but you're not dying either. That's what counts. A lot of early creatures go extinct because they get fancy. You stay boring. A winning strategy, apparently. There's something bubbling up now, thicker than gas. You waddle toward it cautious. The sky darkens not from weather, but from a cloud of ash spewed by a volcano so far away you'll never get there. But its breath reaches you just fine. You feel it in your nostrils, a tang of metal, the whisper of endings. Odd fact of the night. Some fungi back then could grow over 20 feet tall and looked like alien towers made of rotten breadsticks. You bump into one while hunting and recoil. Its skin peels. You eat it anyway. It doesn't fight back. Time moves strangely for you. Days are long. Nights are longer. You don't measure time by sunrises or moons yet. You measure it by when the water tastes different or when the same fish doesn't come back. You remember events by flavor. Off in the distance, something roars, not like a mammal, not even like a reptile. Just deep pressure moving through wet air as if the earth belched in annoyance. You pause, blink again, and settle into a posture of patience. The Devonian is not kind. You've learned to keep your ambitions small. Above the stars are the same ones humans will name thousands of centuries later. You won't care about their names, but you'll remember their positions because they help you time your migrations. One day, not today. Today you stay here where the peat water hugs your belly and the silence hums just under the noise of gnats. You exhale. It smells like mud and ancient choices. You open your mouth just wide enough to let the warm current flow between your teeth. It brings with it the taste of something metallic, something bleeding. The water is full of fish, but not like before. These are plated monsters built like armored trucks, and with the same cheerful attitude. Dunkley Osteus, the tank of the seas, is your neighbor now. You're not friends. You don't have friends, you have opportunities. It's the Carboniferous now, or something like it. The air is so oxygen-rich it practically catches fire if you sneeze wrong. Everything feels alive in the most inconvenient way. Dragonflies the size of hawks zigzag above, and ferns grow like they're trying to reclaim the atmosphere, which they kind of are. You lurk in the shallows, half submerged in roots and moss, letting only your nostrils peek out like two bored sentries. One of the armored fish swims too close, thinking itself invincible. That's the problem with new designs. They're all confidence and no testing. You pivot your body in a slow coil muscles like wet rope and strike. Your teeth sink in beneath the plating where the gills pulse unprotected. The fish spasms, slaps you across the jaw with its tail, then goes limp. You drag it to the mud and begin your methodical disassembly. You never rush a meal. This is not because of etiquette, it's because if you gulp too fast, the bones might punch holes in your throat. You've learned this the hard way, twice. The volcanoes never stop talking. In the distance, they cough and gurgle like sick giants painting the sky in bruises. Pangea is beginning its theatrical entrance, the continents slowly scooting together like shy strangers at a campfire. You don't care about plate tectonics. You just know the rivers change direction now and then, and sometimes the water turns hot without asking. Historians still debate whether Earth's oxygen spike during this era contributed to gigantism in arthropods, but you can't help noticing everything around you is too big. The bugs buzz louder than birds. You once saw a millipede that took 10 minutes to finish crossing your vision. It didn't notice you. You didn't eat it. It looked like it might taste like pencil shavings. Here's your odd fact for tonight. Some early sharks had bizarre circular saw-like teeth that spiraled out of their mouths like nature was drawing a joke in a notebook margin. One tried to bite you once. You bit back harder. It did not try again. The water is choppier than usual. Something stirs far offshore. You ignore it. Whatever it is, it probably wants drama. You are not dramatic. You are patient. That's the difference between surviving 5 extinctions and getting a single fossil named after you. A sudden rainstorm hits. Not a drizzle, not even a downpour. It's like the sky forgets how to sky and dumps the entire atmosphere into your swamp in under 5 minutes. You sink deeper into the mud bubbles fizzing from your back as you vanish. Some animals panic when it rains. You nap. A few hours or maybe days later, you surface. Everything smells fresher, cleaner. You don't like it. Clean means change. You like things old, mossy, barely held together by habit. You push off with your tail snout tilted to catch the glint of a fish's scales. Missed it. Whatever. There's always more. You notice something odd on the bank's tracks. Not yours, not fish, something with toes and maybe even knees. Amphibians are getting bolder. They don't realize the land isn't as forgiving as water. You tried it once. Got sunburned, got lost, stubbed your whatever it is you call those things you walk on. Still, you remember that warm patch of rock. The way the heat sank into your bones? You'll return there, later, when the fish stop being delicious. The wind shifts. Something sulfurous in the air. Another volcano, maybe. Or maybe the earth is just gassy again. You learn to tell time by these things. Every sulfuric breath means another cycle is closing. Another page is curling inward. You meanwhile keep turning no pages at all. Just floating, just watching. Humans one day will try to imagine what you are. They'll call you a stem crocodilian or maybe a proto-reptile. The truth is much simpler. You are a problem that evolution gave up trying to solve. And so you keep going. Above you, something flaps awkwardly through the twilight. You squint. Is that a... It lands in the mud, hissing and shivering its fins, trying to be wings. It's not there yet. Not quite, but it's dreaming big. You let it be. One day it might eat your grandchildren. But for now, it's just weird. You move on, slipping between tree roots that arch like the ribcage of a forgotten beast. A turtle, one of the first, is sunning itself. You nod at it, or at least think about nodding. It blinks once. Respect. It's getting darker, not night dark era dark. You feel it in your spine. Something is coming, something big, and not the asteroid, not yet. This one is quieter. A drop in oxygen, a rise in CO2, plants die off. Insects stop growing tall and start growing mean. You know the feeling. This isn't your first mass extinction. You dig into the mud, slow, deliberate, curling your tail around you like a thought you don't want to finish. You'll ride this one out, like the last one, like the next one. You close your eyes, but not to sleep, just to wait. You twitch one eye open and it sticks a little. The mud has glued your eyelids shut with patience. You're no longer in the Carboniferous. That train left the station without bothering to announce it. The water's thinner now, faster. You feel it in the way your limbs move, less resistance, more depth, but also colder. You don't like cold. It makes your thoughts feel like pebbles clacking together in your skull, but you move anyway. Your ribs flex. Your belly slithers forward across the peat. That's harder now, packed dense from eons of fallen trees compressing into stone. Your skin itches with change. Your bones are less solid than they used to be, more like scaffolding. Flexible, adapting, which is a polite way of saying they haven't figured themselves out yet. You cough up some mud. There's something odd happening inside your body, your lungs. You have lungs now. Not perfect ones, mind you, not like the sleek bellows birds will one day boast about. Yours are wet, clumsy sacks of air, but they work. You surface and suck in breath like it's dessert. Historians still debate whether early crocodiliform ancestors emerged fully from the water or clung to amphibious lifestyles for longer. You're definitely straddling that line, dragging your heavy belly across fern-covered slopes and dipping your tail back into the water every time you feel too dry. The air is just barely tolerable. You tolerate it with the same expression you give everything ancient annoyance. The trees are taller. There are pine-like things now, and they drop cones that crunch nicely underfoot. Well, under whatever those limbs of yours are. They're getting stronger though, still laughably stubby. You try lifting one to scratch an itch and almost roll over. Grace is not on your evolutionary roadmap. You catch a glimpse of a shadow between the trees, bipedal, fast, reckless. Something small, with teeth and ambitions. Early reptiles are zipping through the underbrush like over-caffeinated lizards. You ignore them. They're just kids trying on costumes. You've seen it all. Your senses are sharper. The water tastes like mineral instead of rot. The wind carries messages bird-like chirps, the occasional stomp, the scent of things that bleed on land now. You follow that scent. It takes you to a burrow, not your own. Inside, something warm and twitchy. You snap it up. Tastes like future mammal. Not bad. Little oily. Here's your odd fact: in this era, some amphibians were the size of cars. You've met one. Lurking in a stagnant pool, eyes like soup bowls breathing through skin and bad decisions. It croaked at you once and you bit its toe. It didn't croak again. The world shifting under you. You felt it before, continents nudging into each other like exhausted dancers at the end of the song. Mountains are forming again. New rivers, new predators, new rules. You break none of them. You don't have to. You're the loophole. You survive by being slightly behind the times. Just enough to avoid attention. Just enough to eat well and run slow. You slink under a rock shelf and let the cool shadow hide you. Something heavy thumps nearby, maybe a dicynodont or one of those tusked herbivores that grunt like clogged horns. You don't care. If it's not bleeding or swimming, it's not your problem. You attempt land again. This time you stay up for nearly an hour. You crawl over moss under roots across a trail where something dragging a tail has passed recently. You sniff it. It's warm-blooded. That's new. You hiss softly, not from fear but from offense. Warm-blooded things move too much. They panic too easily. You prefer your meals calm. Historians still can't decide if your shift toward a more terrestrial body was a result of escaping aquatic competition or simply a happy accident. Either way, you're getting the hang of it. You sun yourself when the light is gentle. You hide when it's sharp. Your skin thickens in patches. Calluses where the ground pushes hardest. You're not evolving fast. You're just refining laziness into art. You hear a rustle. Another amphibian number. It's smaller, scaly, curious. A cousin, maybe. It watches you with slit eyes and skitters off when you blink. You don't chase it. You're not here to compete. You're here to continue. A dry breeze stirs leaves the size of your head. You move toward the water, but not to escape. You dip one toe in, still cold. You lower your snout and drink even though it tastes of ash. You've drunk worse. You rest. You listen. You feel the earth breathing under you. Everything's different again, and yet you are still here. You wake to the sound of something dying loudly. It's not a scream, not exactly. It's more like a series of thuds followed by one really unfortunate crunch. You blink slowly, not out of alarm but curiosity. If something nearby is losing a fight that dramatically, it might be worth investigating, or at least worth stealing the leftovers. You rise from the reeds like a rumor body, caked in dried mudtail trailing a faint groove behind you. The air is hotter now. The sky bleeds orange during the day and bruises purple by dusk. You've crossed into the Triassic. Everything around you is new and uncomfortable. Reptiles have gotten cocky, legs are longer, teeth are sharper. And you're still low to the ground wearing your indifference like armor. The noise draws you toward a clearing where the fight has ended. A sail-backed predator, a Dimetrodon or something like it, lies shredded near a broken log. Its attacker is gone, but the smell of blood lingers in the humidity like cheap perfume. You eye the corpse, too fresh, still twitching. You don't like food that moves after you bite it. So you wait. That's what you're best at. Other animals burn calories pacing, chasing, roaring. You spend your energy exactly once every 2 days, and only if the prize wiggles. While other species fight for dominance, you master the art of strategic boredom. Historians still debate whether crocodilian ancestors in the Triassic were active hunters or ambush predators, but your method leaves no room for discussion. You hide. You pounce. Then you go back to hiding. It works. Has worked. We'll keep working until the sun burns out or someone finally bans swamps. A shadow crosses your path bipedal, fast, cocky. That again. You've seen these things before, but they're getting bolder. They hunt in groups now, long tails for balance, hands free for clawing or throwing or whatever else creatures with ambition do. You don't have ambition. You have hunger and patience. That's plenty. You watch one of them leap onto a tree trunk, chirp at another, and dart off. The two of them play fight like mammal pups. They don't see you. No one ever sees you until it's too late. You slide into a nearby stream where the water is the perfect temperature, warm enough to relax your limbs, cool enough to preserve whatever carcass floats by. A turtle swims past. You consider it, then dismiss it. Too much shell, not enough reward. Odd fact for the evening: in the Triassic, some reptiles developed armor not just on their backs but across their bellies, and even faces, turning themselves into walking anvils. You once tried to eat one. It was like biting a gravel path. You don't make that mistake twice. You drift downstream until you find a deeper pool carved by time and the stubborn drip of rainfall. It smells rich. Moss, decay, old fungus, maybe even frog spawn. You settle in. You like places that seem like they were forgotten halfway through creation. The night brings more sounds. Screeches, grunts, one prolonged shriek that echoes down the ravine like a ghost, still learning how to be scary. You let it pass. The land is noisy now. Too many legs stomping around with purpose. You miss the Devonian quiet when the loudest thing was a farting mud bubble. Something approaches, slow, heavy. You tense not out of fear but anticipation. It's a new predator, one you haven't seen before. Low-slung, wide-snouted, muscular tail. It stops at the water's edge, sniffing. You hold perfectly still. You've been practicing this pose for 50 million years. It doesn't spot you. It drinks. You lunge. Water explodes. Teeth meet soft flesh. You clamp down across the throat twist with a practiced roll and drag the struggling body into the mud. No panic. No show. Just force applied precisely where history has taught you it matters. You eat in silence. When you're done, you rest, always in that order. The moon rises, casting silver bars across the ripples. You watch it lazily. Some of your descendants will worship it. Others will use its phases to hunt. You don't. You just like how it looks when you're digesting. Historians argue about your kind's intelligence during this era. Whether you had strategy, awareness. You'd chuckle if you could. Intelligence is expensive. It requires calories, risks, trial and error. You prefer guaranteed returns. Every one of your brain cells is an accountant. You dream, sort of. Sensations flicker behind closed eyes. The smell of sulfur, the tug of river currents, the thump of prey hitting the ground. You don't dream of flying. That's for the fools with feathers. You awaken before dawn. Your body already halfway submerged in the water. It's instinct by now, sleep floating. Wake silent. Breathe slow. Move only when everything else stops. A mist curls over the surface. You blink it away. Somewhere upstream, a tree crashes into the water with a splash that startles birds into flight. You don't look. The world can crumble 1,000 times over and you'll still be here, jaw half open, wondering what the fuss is about. You move inland as the sun rises. Something in your bones tells you this place won't last. You can feel the land trembling again. Volcanic sighs, cracks forming. The heat smells different. It always does before things go very, very wrong. You don't worry. You just walk. You lie in water so still it's barely distinguishable from sky. Above you, dragonflies the size of paperback novels slice the humid air. A pair of early pterosaurs squabble on a high rock ledge, each making noises like gargling pine cones. You watch with one unblinking eye. You're not particularly interested in their drama, but it's hard not to eavesdrop when someone's flapping that loud. It's the Jurassic now, when the air is different again. Thinner, warmer, more layered with scents. Everything smells like it's been sun-baked, lightly steamed and then rolled in leaf litter. You like it, The heat suits you. It makes your blood slow, your thoughts syrupy and comfortable. You've taken up residence in a lazy oxbow lake where the mud is fine, the shade is plentiful, and the fish are too distracted by their own mating rituals to see you coming. You barely move during daylight. You don't have to. The world's gotten busy enough for both of you. Above you, shadows flicker and shift, some wide and leathery, others feathered and jittery. Feathers. Now there's a weird detour. You watched scales become fuzz. You watched fuzz become fans. Now you're watching fans trying to fly. Some do it with elegance. Some do it like they forgot halfway through how wings work. It's endearing. Feathered dinosaurs are testing their luck around the shoreline. Little ones about the size of chickens with attitude problems. One struts too close to your patch of water, pecks at a snail, then freezes. It feels something watching, but by the time it realizes what, your jaws are already closing around it. A quick shake. No drama. Breakfast. Historians still debate whether crocodilians and feathered theropods competed for prey or if they occupied neatly separated ecological niches. You didn't get the memo, so you eat whatever wanders close. You've eaten beetles, turtles, fish, your own molted tail, once long story, and now you're adding ambitious proto-bird to the list. The lake you occupy sparkles with a deceptive calm. Reeds sway with lazy confidence. But underneath the surface, the ecosystem is one big gossip chain. Fish dart away from shadows. Frogs hush when the water pressure changes. Everything knows who the boss is, even if they've never seen you move. Odd fact. The first birds didn't chirp. Not really. Their calls were probably weird honks and hisses. You find that comforting. At least evolution didn't nail everything on the first try. You spend afternoons pretending to be a log. This is not laziness. This is advanced camouflage. Every ripple of your nostrils is calculated. Every flick of your tail is a suggestion rather than an action. When you do move, it's a decision, not a reaction. The forest around you teems with gossip. Herds of sauropods stomp by on the far banks, leaving craters where your grandchildren will someday bask. They are large, impossibly so. Necks like cranes, feet like boulders wrapped in pudding. One of them slips in the mud once and cries out a low, mournful sound that makes the water vibrate. You feel it in your chest. Then it gets up and keeps walking. You admire that. You don't bother them. They're too big to eat and too dumb to fear you. Instead, you watch the scavengers that follow them, pack-hunting feather bearers with curved claws and narrow snouts. Sometimes they bicker over the scraps. Sometimes they eye the water's edge like they're trying to solve you as a riddle. They never do. You retreat into the mud when the rain comes. Jurassic storms don't knock politely. They fall like they're trying to erase the ground. The raindrops are thick and warm, and they tap out rhythms on your armored back. You barely notice. You've wedged yourself under a tangle of roots and let the water rise around you. You've survived worse. This is spa day. Lightning cracks through the canopy and something screeches in the distance. One of the flying ones probably lost its perch. You've learned not to bother with things in the air. If it flies, it's hard to catch. If it lands, it's already scared. You want prey with just enough confidence to taste good. A few days later, the river floods. Your oxbow becomes part of something larger and more dangerous. You drift with it, letting the current carry you through drowned forest corridors and new hunting grounds. You see strange beasts with plates on their backs and clubs for tails. You avoid those. They seem like the type to fight even after death. You pass under a tree where a baby theropod is calling for something its mother may be, or a meal that won't return. You float just close enough to be noticed. It stares. You stare back. A tense moment. Then you keep going. You're not hungry. Mari, not right now. Historians still puzzle over whether crocodilians developed their famous death roll during this time or later. You've been rolling prey since before rolling was a trend. Sometimes you do it just to scratch an itch. At night, the stars look different. There's no North Star yet. The constellations have different stories, no humans around to name them. Just silence, mist, and the soft breath of the earth exhaling. You nestle into a shallow pool warmed by geothermal vents. You don't know what geothermal means. You just like how it feels. Safe, steady, quiet. You close your eyes. Somewhere a meteor is probably already on its way, but that's not your problem yet. You'll wake when it gets interesting. You exhale beneath the surface and feel the ripple travel up the stalks of the mangroves. This isn't just water anymore, it's home. Not a shelter, not a territory. Home. Your body fits into these roots like it was poured into the blueprint long before either of you existed. The tides have become your lullaby, the reeds your curtain. And here in the Cretaceous, with its over-decorated skies and its noise-polluted forests, you are the quiet. The sun sinks beyond the canopy, and a hush folds over the delta like a warm blanket. You wait, motionless. The dusk is your stage. You've adapted for this. Your eyes function better in low light. Your nostrils track the faintest exhale of fear. Night is when the brave get stupid. That's when you eat. Across the marsh, a tyrannosaurus stomps about like it invented loud. It bellows its head like a battering ram on legs, its breath already scented with blood and ego. You watch it from your pool unimpressed. Let it have its fanfare. You do your best work in whispers. You're smaller than them, yes. Slower, maybe? But the mangroves don't care. In this maze of tangled wood and soft mud, you are the tyrant. Oh. You know every shadow, every burrow, every slope that pretends to be a safe resting spot. A hadrosaur calf stumbles too close to the shallows. It hesitates, sniffing the dark. You don't lunge, not yet. You let it drink, let it drop its guard. Then with a movement smoother than thought, you launch upward. Jaws crack bone before the calf even knows it's been rewritten. The kill is silent. You vanish again, the water closing behind you like an unmarked grave. Historians still debate whether crocodiliforms of the Cretaceous had complex vocalizations, but you prefer gestures. A rustle, a flick, a ripple. Words are for species that need to explain themselves. You drag the carcass into a hollow beneath the roots. It's yours now. Tomorrow it might not be. That's the rule. You eat just enough to feel full but not sleepy. The rest will wait. Or it won't. Night deepens. The stars blur behind mist and wing beats. You hear something high-pitched overhead, some flying dinosaur in mid-courtship. Its cry is nasal desperate. You don't look up. Nothing good ever comes from the sky. Odd fact of the night, some pterosaurs had crests taller than their own bodies. Scientists think it might have been for attracting mates. You think they looked like confused hats? You once saw one crash into a tree because its crest caught a vine. You didn't laugh, but your tail twitched a little. You sleep lightly, always one eye open just in case. The next day brings heat thick and swampy. Bugs sing like broken radios. Your skin itches under the sun, so you sink low. There's talk of drought in the plants, you can smell it. The roots aren't as firm. The frogs sing shorter. The fish school tighter. You move to a deeper inlet. On the way, you pass another of your kind. Smaller. Younger. It hisses. You don't respond. You've survived too long for posturing. You lock eyes for a moment. Then both of you drift apart like forgotten thoughts. Historians argue whether ancient crocodilians were territorial. The truth is, you are but only if there's something worth guarding. Today, nothing is. You find a new hollow shaded and cool, filled with the bones of creatures who once thought this was their lucky day. You settle in back against the root wall nose barely above the waterline. Time is slow here. That's how you like it. A little after dusk, something wades in. Two-legged, feathery, clawed. Its gait is cautious, its eyes scanning for motion. You hold your breath. This one is smarter. It smells like strategy, a raptor, maybe even one of the clever ones. You respect it. enough not to charge. It pauses, tilts its head. You blink once, it backs away. Good decision. Not all prey is worth the effort. You've lived long enough to know that sometimes survival means skipping dinner. Later that night, rain returns. Heavy pounding, almost playful. The whole marsh becomes percussion. You stay still, let it wash your back, let it rinse the blood from your teeth. Beneath the rain you think or something close to it. You don't plan, but you do remember. You remember the Devonian warmth, the Carboniferous forests, the Triassic bullies. You remember what it's like to change without meaning to become something new just by staying the same. Historians still don't know exactly how you keep living. Some say it's your blood, some your heart, some your unbothered demeanor. You don't know either. You just wake up, eat, wait, repeat. The thunder rolls far away and you imagine some young theropod flinching under a rock, trying to remember if it should be afraid of lightning. You hope it is. You curl deeper under the roots. The swamp hums. You sleep, not because you're tired, because you can. The sky goes wrong before the world does. You notice it before anyone else. Not because you're smarter, though you'd never admit you aren't, but because your eyes are older. Not in years, but in habits. You know the sky. You know what it should feel like. And right now, it feels like a secret is being kept. Days stretch too long. Nights arrive too fast. The wind picks up and forgets how to be warm. Somewhere beyond the horizon, something immense is preparing to arrive. The birds, real birds, now not just feathered lizards on training wings, begin to vanish from the canopy. They take their gossip elsewhere. The frogs go quiet. Even the insects seem reluctant to show up. You, however, remain exactly where you've always been. The fifth extinction doesn't happen all at once. First comes the smoke, then the trembling. Then the sun decides it's had enough of this planet's attitude and checks out for a while. You feel it in your belly, the cold, creeping like guilt. Historians still debate whether the asteroid that ended the Cretaceous caused immediate mass death or set off a domino chain of collapse. You can't weigh in. You didn't see the rock, but you felt the silence that came afterward. You lie low, very low. You press your belly into the cooling mud, your nostrils barely breaking the water's surface. You stop blinking. Not that you did much of that anyway. Plants wither. The once booming marshlands shrink. Food becomes a ghost. Your diet shifts, less meat, more scavenging. Rot doesn't bother you. Hunger teaches forgiveness. One night the sky lights up like it regrets everything. Orange glows beneath the clouds. You don't watch. You listen. The trees crackle in the distance, burning like angry memories. Ash drifts in and coats the water, makes it bitter, makes your tongue ache. You stay under for days, for weeks, maybe longer. Time during a mass extinction is not counted in hours or seasons. It's counted in stillness. Every minute you don't move is another minute you don't die. Odd fact for the era, crocodilians can hold their breath for up to 2 hours in modern times. You're doing that, but emotionally. Eventually the fires die. The ash settles. The world becomes gray and confused. Your usual ambush spots become barren. Your favorite hideaways turn to sludge. Even the fish seem uncertain of their direction. You catch one by accident and it practically surrenders. The big predators are gone. The raptors, the horned ones, the duckbills with their mournful songs, all of them blinked out like a bedtime story someone stopped reading. You remember their smells, their movement. You don't miss them, but you remember. Historians still argue over how you survived when so many others didn't. Was it your slow metabolism? Your ability to eat almost anything? Your semi-aquatic smugness? Maybe. Or maybe it's because you never expected the world to love you. You watch the forest try to regrow. Saplings push through the ash like shy promises. Mammals emerge twitchy and ungraceful, trying to claim a planet they never paid rent for. They squeak and scurry and bite each other with tiny teeth. You find them amusing. You don't chase them. You wait. You always wait. Your territory has shrunk to a stagnant stinking pool that smells like wet charcoal and regrets. But it's enough. Barely. You sun yourself when the clouds allow. You eat when something dumber than you stumbles by. You sleep lightly. And the sky. Oh, the sky, it changes again. Slowly, it lets light back in. Not as warm as before, but warm enough. You raise your head and blink at it. Just once. Then you go back to napping. One day, a bird lands near you. It's small, curious, pecking at your tail. You don't eat it. You're not hungry. It hops away unconcerned. You wonder how long it will last. Odd fact. Some scientists believe that crocodilian ancestors were able to hibernate, or at least dramatically slow their metabolism in cold or food-scarce times. You've done it. You're practically a professional at not dying. The world feels emptier, but not for long. Things always fill the silence. New trees, new sounds, new competitors. You'll meet them. You'll outwait them. For now, you settle into the blackwater pool and take a breath that smells of soot and dust and the leftovers of giants. You exhale. You survived. Again, you drift beneath a thin veil of water that barely hides you from the sun. Not that the sun is looking too hard. It's lost some of its swagger since the sky collapsed. The light comes in weaker now through air still heavy with regret. You rise just enough to expose the tip of your snout. Inhale. Still here. The world is rebuilding one reluctant inch at a time. The trees that come back look uncertain of themselves. Scrubby things with narrow trunks and leaves that seem suspicious of the wind. The insects return first, of course. They always do. Resilient, nosy, and completely unaware of mass extinction events. You, on the other hand, are very aware. You haven't left your stretch of water in weeks, maybe months. You've barely moved except to eat. Even that has become a performance in minimalism. A bird dies in the shallows. You nudge it toward your jaw. A small mammal scurries by, you inhale, and let your teeth do the rest. You don't hunt. You receive. Historians still debate whether crocodilian ancestors entered states of near dormancy in the aftermath of the KPG extinction. But whatever it's called, you're doing it. Your heartbeat slows. Your breath is occasional. Time for you is measured in decay cycles and algae blooms. There's something eerie about this new world. Quiet, yes, but also watchful. Mammals creep along the forest floor wide-eyed and twitching as if they know they've inherited a haunted house. One of them squeals in your direction, startled by the ripple you made turning over. You don't chase it. It's barely worth a chew. You spend the cool morning half buried in sludge, letting dragonflies land on your snout like fools with nowhere better to be. A frog sits on your back for a while, mistaking you for a particularly stylish log. You don't mind. It's a nice change from being feared. Odd fact of the morning, in the Paleogene mammals were still getting used to being in charge. Some had hooves, some laid eggs, some couldn't make up their minds, and just decided to be weird for a few million years. You watch them all. You file them away under potential snacks. The water's edge shrinks day by day, less rain lately. The skies still soar from the extinction, coughing up cloudy days and awkward weather patterns. You adapt. Again. Always. You've never had the luxury of being picky. You dig yourself into a shallow bank just enough to keep your skin damp. A group of small mammals passes nearby. You can hear their nervous little feet padding through the ferns. They smell like milk and dirt. You track them with one eye and let them go. You're full, also curious. Historians aren't sure how many crocodiliform species survived the end Cretaceous event, but you suspect the number is enough. Your kind's secret isn't speed or strength or even intelligence, it's stubbornness. You refuse to go extinct. You find loopholes in every apocalypse. Eventually the rains return. Not all at once. Just a drizzle, then a downpour, then a Proper monsoon that reclaims the lowlands and flushes out the bones. You rise with the water buoyed by instinct. You haven't swum in weeks. It feels indulgent, almost reckless. You follow the river downstream just far enough to explore. The landscape is unfamiliar. Trees you don't recognize. Insects with extra legs. Sounds that weren't part of the old world's playlist, but the mud still smells right and the fish still panic when you enter. Some things don't change. You find a new place shaded cool with a bend in the water that slows prey just enough for your style of hunting. You settle in like you've always been there. No ceremony, no announcement. A bird lands nearby dipping its beak. Its feathers are brighter than before reds and blues that make no evolutionary sense. You let it drink, you're feeling generous. Later, something crashes through the underbrush. You brace ready to vanish, but it's just a mammal. Big, clumsy, herbivorous, like a bad impression of a dinosaur. You snort. It runs. Good. You stretch. Bones pop, muscles ache. You've been still for too long. But you're stronger than ever. Your body remembers every extinction, every flood, every season of starvation. It remembers and it survives. At night, you listen to the stars hum. Not literally, of course, but you swear they sound different now, like they've reset, like they're watching to see what happens next. You close your eyes. You know the answer. You keep going. You blink slowly as morning steam rises off the river, like breath from a tired god. The world is smaller now, quieter, flatter, less theatrical, but you've come to appreciate its new rhythm. The explosions are gone. The ash has settled. In its place, a soft carpet of ferns and mammals trying their best not to look confused. You lounge in the shade of overhanging branches, half in mud, half in memory. You've seen 5 ages fall and 5 climates forget their names. And now you watch. A group of small deer-like creatures grazes at the riverbank. Not too far, not too cautious. Their legs are spindly, their eyes wide, their noses always twitching. You admire their dedication to being edible. But you don't lunge, not today. Watching is enough. The mammals own the land now. They pour out of burrows and tree hollows like the whole planet is theirs by default. Their ears are too big, their feet are too soft. They lack armor fangs venom, but they keep multiplying like nobody told them they're underqualified. Historians still debate whether crocodilians competed directly with early mammals after the KPG extinction. But from your position half-sunk in murk and full of indifference, you see it differently. You don't compete, you outlast. You start to notice patterns. Mammals rise with the sun, skitter through the day, then vanish at dusk. You do the opposite. You're the punctuation mark at the end of their sentences. At night, you patrol the riverbank, your eyes glowing faintly in the dark like slow-burning coals. You make no sound. You need none. Odd fact. Some ancient mammals had venomous spurs on their hind legs. One tried to kick you once. It missed. You ate it and got a headache. Not your proudest snack. Your appetite changes with the land. You learn to chew less and gulp more. Bones have gotten thinner, easier to snap. Your teeth grow duller, but your grip grows stronger. You don't need to chase anything. Just wait until something forgets you're there. One afternoon, a strange shape passes through your river. Long legs, long neck, loud mouth. A hominid. Not the kind that stands up yet, but close. Curious thing, pokes at the water with a stick, tries to crack a muscle on a rock. Slips and nearly falls in. You don't move. You just observe. Later that night, you smell fire. Not volcanic fire, purposeful fire. Something trying to control heat. You don't like it. You sink into the current and paddle downstream. You've survived everything by knowing when to leave. You find a quieter stretch of river, untouched by ambition. Trees grow old here. The water moves slow. The fish don't panic until it's too late. You make a home in the bend of the bank under a willow-like tree that seems to understand you. Historians have traced some crocodilian lineages almost unbroken through this era. You, more than anyone, are the definition of persistence. Not greatness, not innovation, just not dying. The mammals build nests now, not from instinct, but from intention. They use tools, they organize, they look up at the stars. You used to do that too, but only to find constellations that meant rain, or hunt, or time to sleep for 6 weeks. Now they're building fires on purpose, painting rocks, trying words. You exhale a slow hiss and watch them from the shadows. Let them think the world is theirs. You've seen worse tenants. Odd fact, even now, modern crocodilians can survive months without food by slowing their metabolism and recycling stored fat. You could, if necessary, do absolutely nothing for a long, long time. Which is your preferred survival strategy anyway? Sometimes you think of the old days when birds weren't birds yet, when fish wore armor, when forests had no leaves. You remember by taste, by texture. Not names, not facts, just sensations. A mammal child once wandered too close to your den. It didn't know the rules yet. You didn't eat it, you weren't hungry. It stared at you with wide eyes, pointed, and said something in a language not yet invented. You blinked. It ran. Good instinct. You shift in the mud as the stars emerge. The moon hangs low and orange like it's pretending not to watch you. You feel the temperature drop. Something scuttles in the reeds. You ignore it. You're waiting. Always. You hear them before you see them. 2 feet slapping the surface of the water. Not cautious, not clumsy either. Confident. Rhythmic. You keep still beneath your curtain of duckweed and algae eyes just below the waterline. The steps grow louder, splashy, and deliberate. Then the scent arrives: salt oil leather, a hint of citrus. Something new. You inch forward just enough to get a look. Sandals. Not bark-strapped foot coverings or woven reed pads, crafted sandals, with soles. You stare at them like they're intruders in an old dream. The legs attached to them are brown, sun-worn, and covered in dust. Human. You've met them before at a distance, but this is different. This one is walking into your water. You don't strike. You're not sure why. Something about the way he moves, calculated, like he's reading the river. He doesn't look around nervously. He doesn't smell like prey. He smells like command, like stories. There's something on his belt, a blade of bronze, dull from use, not from neglect. He scoops water into a bowl made from his hands, sips, spits. Then he kneels and stares directly at the reeds at you. You don't blink. He speaks. Not words you understand, but a cadence you recognize, reverent. As if he knows the river is alive. As if he's talking to you. Historians still debate whether ancient Romans believed crocodiles were sacred or demonic, but clearly someone whispered about you to this man. Maybe a traitor from the south, maybe a dream. Either way, he stands up, nods once, and leaves the way he came. You lower back into the water. You don't believe in signs, but if you did, odd fact of the night. Roman generals once paraded animals from distant lands, lions, elephants, crocodiles, through the streets of Rome. Most died in arenas. But some, like you, were never caught. You simply weren't where the net landed. You shift to a new hollow along the bank just upriver from a collection of stones where humans have gathered. They build small fires and roast something that smells like fish and herbs. You consider it very briefly, but your stomach isn't empty. Curiosity is heavier than hunger. Children play near the shallows, throwing stones and shrieking when the water splashes back. One girl ventures close, drops a stick into the water, and watches it float. You sink deeper. She doesn't see you. No one ever does. Historians might wonder, were crocodiles feared, respected, or ignored by early civilizations? The answer is yes. Sometimes you were a monster in a tale told to keep children from wandering off. Sometimes a guardian spirit of the river, sometimes just a strange log that moved when no one was watching. Later that night, someone sings by the fire. You don't understand the words, but the melody winds through the trees like smoke. The frogs answer. The night is alive in a new language. You dream. Not memories, not prophecy, just sensations again, the warmth of sun-baked stone under your belly, the copper taste of old blood, the way the river bends around your body like it was made to. You awaken before dawn. Everything smells like dew and ashes and rosemary. You watch a trader stumble through the thicket carrying a basket of fish. He doesn't see the snake that slithers across his path. You do. You watch as he jumps, swears, drops the basket. 3 fish flap across the sand. You wait until he's gone, then collect one as it slides into your reach. No effort. That's your religion. The next day, something floats downriver, a wooden boat square flat-bottomed with netting draped across the sides. 2 humans aboard, one pushing with a long pole, the other tossing nets. They pass by your pool without a glance, but one of them mutters something. You catch it barely, a word that means old demon. Or maybe river ghost. You're not offended. You are both. Odd fact, crocodilians have the strongest measured bite force of any living animal. You rarely need to use it. Fear is more efficient than teeth. The Romans move on, as they always do. Their outposts crumble. Their gods change names. Their sandals rot. But you stay. You watch the fires grow cold. The voices fade. The river returns to silence. And you wait. Still here. The next time humans arrive, they bring flags. Not spears, not sandals. Flags? They plant them like trees that forgot how to grow, each one fluttering in colors that don't belong to the river. You don't know what they mean, but you recognize the behavior claiming. They speak in sharp tones, argue in groups, build little forts out of logs and mud in the belief that this place is theirs. You sigh underwater. Again, it's the age of empires now. The river's bank is carved into fields. The hills wear fences. Boats clutter the water like overconfident ducks. You watch them pass low in the reeds, your eyes barely above the surface. Some are built of wood, others of metal, all of them noisy. You never ask to be part of history. It just keeps dragging itself to your shore. Occasionally, a soldier or a settler vanishes. Their camps whisper about the river curse. They say it drags men under, strips them of their sins, and leaves only boots. One man swears he saw the water blink. You give him no reason to doubt it. Historians still debate how widespread crocodile attacks were in colonial frontiers, or whether stories were exaggerated to dramatize the wilderness. You don't care. You know what happened. Some were true, some were cautionary tales, and some were you very bored, very hungry, and very done with trespassers. You patrol less now. The river's narrower, controlled by levees and channeling and human opinions. But your patience is wide. Your range is the mud, the silence and time. One day, a missionary sets up a camp near your lagoon. He prays in 3 languages, builds a little chapel from palm thatch, and hope and wades into the water to baptize a local boy. You watch from beneath a floating mat of leaves. You are not hungry, but you are curious. He submerges the child, lifts him, smiles. You blink. The boy blinks. For a second, he sees you. You see him know. He says nothing. He just walks out of the water a little faster than he went in. Odd fact of the era, in some colonial outposts, crocodiles were believed to be reincarnated ancestors, especially in West Africa and Southeast Asia. You've been bowed to. You've been spat at. You've been both God and devil sometimes in the same week. Later, someone tries to hunt you. He sets traps, stakes bait to a post, waits with a musket half the size of his confidence. You lie still at the far end of the lagoon for 3 full days. On the 4th, while he sleeps by the fire, you quietly take the bait. You leave his rope coiled neatly beside the empty stake. He leaves the next morning mumbling something about cursed water and going back to the coast. You don't follow. You never chase. A steamboat passes upriver belching black smoke. It rattles the trees. Fish scatter. The birds panic. You do not move. The boat leaves. You remain. As always. Historians might say this was a time of change, of discovery, of global shifts. For you, it was a Tuesday. The water tastes like iron now. Human tools have spilled their minerals into the river. You can smell coal gunpowder, the sweat of too many people trying to outpace extinction. You're not impressed. At night, the moonlight reflects off canvas tents and metal pots. Children sleep in hammocks strung between trees. You drift closer than you need to just to feel the warmth of their fire on your scales. You miss fire. Not for use, just for how it used to smell before gasoline and ambition got involved. Odd fact, crocodilians have palatal valves that allow them to open their mouths underwater without drowning. You've used yours while dragging prey catching turtles, and once while chewing on a colonial compass just to see if it crunched right. It did. Eventually, the flags rot. The forts collapse. Empires, it turns out, are even more fragile than fish. You find a new stretch of river that no one wants. It's thick with vines full of biting insects, and too shallow for boats. You call it home. Again, as always. You nestle into the roots of a half-fallen tree. Sleep through a monsoon. Wake to a sky still rearranging its clouds. And you wait. You don't remember the first time someone called you immortal. It might have been whispered in a forgotten tongue by a fisherman who saw you lounging in the same bend of river his grandfather spoke of. Or maybe it was the jungle boy who threw stones at your tail 3 decades ago and returned as a gray-haired guide only to find you still there unbothered. Either way, the title stuck like algae immortal spirit of the river death with a tail. You're not immortal, of course. You've just outlived everything that thought it was. Word spreads. In villages tucked beneath canopy and mist, people speak your name, not a scientific one, but the kind passed between campfires. Some call you No Core Talk, the sleeper of the mud. Others say you're a cursed king condemned to crawl the water until time forgets you. Children are warned not to bathe alone. Teenagers dare each other to touch the water near your lair. The oldest people in the village make offerings, feathers, bits of meat, carved tokens. Not because they worship you, but because they respect survival. You've made it through floods, fire, conquest, and climate. That deserves something. Odd fact, in parts of Indonesia and India, crocodiles are still included in local rituals, sometimes as guardians, sometimes as judges. If you swim past a funeral raft, it means the soul was clean. If you snap at it, well, that's a different story. You begin to notice patterns. Once a year, during the monsoon's retreat, someone comes alone to the riverbank, kneels, and places a bowl into the water. You never take the bowl, but once when they brought fish wrapped in palm leaf, you did take that, quietly, with dignity. They never saw you, but they told the story anyway. Historians still debate whether crocodile reverence in certain cultures stems from fear, food dependence, or something older, something instinctual. You suspect it's all three. After all, you're not just an animal. You're a reminder. You exist not because the world is safe, but because it isn't and never was. You glide through water so dark it reflects nothing. A fallen temple lies half-sunk at the bend roots, coiling around a broken stone, once proud carvings now wearing moss beards. You slip through its old entrance like a thief through a forgotten gate. Inside, the floor is flooded. Fish dart through hallways. Insects nest in the eye sockets of crumbling statues. You float silently among them as if inspecting a memory. Someone painted you here on the wall centuries ago. Crude. Beautiful, your form is massive jaws, open wide, coiled like a serpent in ambush. Around you, humans kneel, in awe, in terror. It's hard to tell. You blink at the image. You wonder if it was drawn from fear or affection. Then again, to you, those were never very different. A bird calls outside. Modern, sharp, annoying. You ignore it. You settle beneath a beam of sun breaking through the roof. Let the warmth seep into your bones. You've lived so long that time has lost its edges. Days smear together like watercolors left in the rain. But some sensations never fade. Sunlight, stillness, silence. Odd fact, crocodilians can go over a year without eating, especially during lean seasons. You've gone longer. Not because you had to, but because nothing came close enough to deserve effort. A tourist once wandered too far upstream, camera in hand, voice loud enough to frighten everything else away. You lay motionless as he passed, head barely visible beneath the green film. He pointed. That log moved. His guide shushed him. They left. You didn't follow. You're not a monster. Not unless it's worth it. At night you hear drums. Not war drums. Celebration. The humans downriver are dancing beneath torches, singing songs whose words no longer hold the same meanings they used to. But rhythm doesn't change. Rhythm remembers. You sway gently with the current and listen. Historians ask, did ancient animals have any sense of self? Could you know your role in myth? In memory. You don't know, you just are. You stir from sleep to the click of a camera shutter. You don't know what a camera is, not in the way humans define it, but you understand attention. It tastes like electricity and arrogance. You slide a single eye open beneath the algae-blanketed surface and spot the culprit or researcher in a blue kayak, drifting a little too confidently, lens trained directly on you. You hold still. He thinks he's found something ancient. He's wrong. You found him. He whispers into his device, calls you by a Latin name too long and too full of hyphens. He lists your features. Armored skin, nictitating membranes. Osteoderms, low metabolism. You've heard it all before. Packaged explanations for why you refuse to vanish. He wonders aloud how you're still here. You wonder if he tastes like sunscreen. Historians still debate what exactly gives your kind the biological edge. Some say it's your heart with its unique valve that lets you slow your heartbeat to a crawl. Others point to your brain, compact and efficient, optimized for survival without clutter. Some think it's your immune system, able to shrug off bacteria that would send others into spasms. You don't argue, you just persist. Odd fact, some crocodilian species can live more than a century. But longevity isn't your trick. It's your side effect. You're not trying to be eternal, you're just really, really bad at dying. The kayak drifts closer. He's murmuring about your age, about how you might be one of the oldest living individuals ever recorded. He doesn't know how old you are, not even close. You were here before measurement. He leans forward as if you're going to do something cinematic. You don't. You wait until his kayak scrapes a root and jolts him upright. He paddles away disappointed. You exhale underwater. Too easy. That night, the researchers camp upriver and the conversation turns to you. The fire crackles. Someone jokes that you're a ghost. Another swears you followed them in a dream. One woman calls you lucky. You find that word hilarious. You are not lucky. You are stubborn with a jaw. The world they live in now is filled with noise and light and chaos. Cities glow so bright that stars get stage fright. Planes rumble overhead like metal geese. Plastic floats in your river like artificial lily pads. You've tried to eat it. It does not crunch well. The river isn't clean anymore. Fish have strange colors. Frogs grow odd bumps. You eat them anyway. You were never picky. Survival has no dietary restrictions. You glide beneath a bridge one morning just as school children point down and shout. One says crocodile, another says monster. You keep moving. You've been called worse. You bask on the muddy bank near a tourist sign warning, do not feed the wildlife. It has a cartoon of you with very round, very inaccurate eyes. You would laugh, but your laugh sounds like a cough and frightens the herons. A ranger walks by with a clipboard noting your location. You stare at him. He stares at you. For a moment, neither of you move. Then he nods. You nod back. Maybe, or maybe it was a twitch. Odd fact, some herpetologists believe crocodilians may have primitive social structures, even forms of communication through hissing, grunting, or body posture. You've hissed before. Once just to clear your throat. A family of raccoons moved away the next day. The water is warm again. Not naturally, climate's gotten messy. Hotter, faster, strange. Storms come wrong. Rain tastes off. You adapt. You always do. But you notice. You notice everything. You've watched empires crumble. You've outlived gods. You've seen languages evolve and vanish before your eyes. Now you're being filmed for TikTok. It's honestly offensive. You float downriver and find an old haunted inlet, long forgotten by boats and bridges. Here, the trees still whisper instead of buzz. The fish don't glow. You settle there just for a while. It reminds you of when the world felt younger. That night, lightning strikes a distant hill. The humans record it. You don't. You just remember how fire used to sound. The next morning, one of the researchers leaves an offering near the bank. Not food, not bones. A note. Laminated. It reads, "How are you still alive? You let the current take it. If they have to ask, they'll never understand." You bob just beneath the surface, watching a plastic bottle bounce lazily against your snout. It spins in circles, labels faded, cap still on. Once you might have ignored it. Now it's hard not to notice how many of them there are. The river is sick. You can smell it in the foam, in the strange shimmer that coats the water when the sun hits just right. You've tasted tires, snack wrappers, empty pens, pieces of things that were never part of any food chain. You've tried swallowing a drone once. It buzzed like a bug but didn't crunch properly. You spat it out. It exploded against a tree and startled a flock of ibis. You're not surprised. Survival has always meant compromise. But lately, even you are wondering how far that goes. Odd fact, microplastics have been found in nearly every aquatic species tested in the last 2 decades, including some modern crocodilians. You're not surprised to find your own gut occasionally filled with things that don't rot. You lie still beneath a drainage pipe where runoff pulses with chemical tang. It burns a little. Not enough to move, not yet. A young crocodile, your kin though many generations removed, slides beside you. He's leaner, twitchier, doesn't remember a world without boats or music blaring from speakers lashed to rafts. He asks in that silent way your kind does. Why stay here? You blink. Then you vanish beneath the algae. When you resurface, he's gone. Good. You don't do pep talks. Historians still argue whether crocodiles can feel stress. Some say your steady heart and slow breath protect you from it. Others say you've just perfected the art of appearing unbothered. You're not telling. Farther downriver, machines dig at the banks. Construction crews in orange vests shout over engines. They're building a resort, the kind that boasts about eco-luxury while cutting down the trees that made the place worth visiting. You listen to the bulldozers for 3 days. On the 4th, you relocate. You find a new pool, deeper and darker. Here, the fish still taste like fish. The water still feels like water. The birds don't know your name yet. That's always a good sign. One night, an old man walks alone to the river's edge. He carries no camera, no nets, just a walking stick and a canteen. He sits quietly for a long time, doesn't move, doesn't speak. Eventually, he begins humming a tune that hasn't been heard in 100 years. You don't know the words, but you know the mood. It's a song about endings. He doesn't see you watching. He doesn't need to. When he leaves, you follow his scent upriver for a while, just long enough to remember the rhythm of footsteps on soft earth. Then you return to your hollow. The nights are warmer now. The storms hit harder. Lightning feels personal. You begin to notice the frogs singing less. The insects seem quieter. Some don't return. Others mutate. You eat a fish with 2 eyes on the same side of its head. It flops in circles even after death. You sleep less. Odd fact. Crocodilians can sleep with 1 brain hemisphere at a time, literally half awake. You've started doing that more often, just in case. Once you see something glowing in the water. It isn't moonlight. It pulses blue. Electric. You don't touch it. You just watch it drift like a jellyfish that forgot what century it's in. It disappears by morning. You try not to think about it. A child throws a rock near you, aiming to scare you off. You blink. He shouts in victory, then runs. You don't follow. You're not here for revenge. You're here to outwait. The humans keep trying to define extinction in tidy terms, numbers, graphs, projections. You know better. Extinction isn't a bang. It's a slow fade. A fishless morning. A stretch of river with no birdsong. A night where you don't hear frogs. A bite of water that tastes like plastic and sorrow. Historians ask, how close did crocodilians come to extinction during the Anthropocene? Some say you were never truly threatened. Others say you only survived because you hid in the margins no one wanted. Both are right. You've always lived in the space between catastrophes. Now you wait at the edge of one more. You close your eyes under a sky thick with heat and strange silence. The stars don't feel like company anymore. You breathe slow. You hold the air. And you wait. Because that's what you do best. The river is slow this morning. Not in the way rivers should be, slow, meandering, thoughtful, soft around the corners, but in the way an old animal walks when it doesn't know where it's going. The water is thick with debris leaves that haven't fallen, plastics that never lived, things lost by people too far upstream to care where their waste ends up. You float in the silence, half submerged, half listening. Something is different. Not loud, not sudden, just different in the way the air tastes and the way the birds don't land anymore. You've seen this before. The sixth extinction isn't roaring in with a bang. It's creeping, whispering, fading in like a shadow that doesn't leave when the sun rises. You pull yourself onto the bank, body heavy but functional. You still move with purpose. Slower, sure, but not less certain. Each step presses into the soft earth like a signature on a very old contract. Odd fact to close with, crocodilians are among the only animals to have outlived not one but 5 major extinction events. Dinosaurs gone. Giant insects vamoosed. Saber-toothed cats. Woolly mammoths. And every overambitious creature that ever forgot how to adapt. All turned to dust. But you adjust. Historians still debate whether you'll survive this one. Whether your patience, your biology, your ancient stubbornness will carry you through. Whether your blood, cold and calculating, will outlast the heat of a world burning a little faster each day. You don't join the debate. You've never needed an audience. You slide back into the water slower than before, maybe, with a grunt you didn't mean to make, and let the current carry you. Downstream, somewhere beneath a fallen bridge, you know a quiet stretch of river still exists. Still murky. Still honest. The fish are fewer now. The frogs mostly quiet. But the mud feels the same. It remembers your belly. It holds your shape. You drift until the stars blink on one by one behind smoke-tinted clouds. The moon is crooked. The wind has a limp. But they're still there. You blink once, twice. Then you close your eyes. The world can change as much as it wants. You will be here when it forgets what it used to be. You will be here when the silence comes again. You will be here when the river starts over. And so, under that final sky, under a planet that's warmed and worn and whispered its last lullabies, you remain cold-blooded, unblinking, and still listening. You've watched time peel back the layers of creation, watched forests rise and fall, seas dry out and flood again. You've memorized the rhythms of extinction, first the quiet, then the dust, then the forgetting. And yet in all this, you have never been in a hurry. You never needed speed, you had stillness. Never needed brilliance, you had memory. You never wanted dominion, you only wanted another sunrise. You have no myths of your own yet. Humans filled libraries trying to explain why you don't go away. They called you sacred, monstrous, prehistoric, eternal, but you were never any of those things. You were just patient. Maybe that's the real secret. While others chased survival with fire and flight and fury, you sank into the mud and waited. While the world bled, you slept. While the sky fell, you blinked. You didn't need to conquer anything. You simply endured. And so here you are, old friend, last of the patient ones. You stretch beneath a sky so quiet it forgets to thunder. The river runs slow, but it runs. Somewhere downstream, something begins again. And you wait for it.